You know, your thoughts about that, where a company like Microsoft now going multi-platform. You know, those days, early days when you were at PlayStation, you know, it was we have the exclusive. You only can find it on this console. You know, so what are your thoughts about that change and that strategy that Microsoft is heading?
Yeah, I understand why people have feelings about it and opinions because if their idea is the identity of me choosing a brand and being beholden to that brand is like, unilateral, and therefore that should be the one source of all content. And I love that Phil mentioned like there's a box in the name, right? Xbox is part of the name. But I do think if we think about it, sort of the analogy of like they were Blockbuster that became Netflix. And what I mean by that is when they began, it was about the physical unit being the sort of entertainment experience in the living room. And that was basically a plastic player that you put discs in and it plays it. So you need to serve people with the physicality of it. Retail and partnerships are important, right? You and I both waited in many lines at many early morning openings to rush in there and sprint against everyone else. I usually lost the race, by the way, but to get that console as fast as we possibly could. And it's just different now. So now they are basically an entertainment provider and not just a disc sort of producer and distributor. So if we think about that, the analogy of like if we think maybe PlayStation's the HBO, Microsoft's the Netflix, and Nintendo's sort of the Disney, if we think about things like that, then their job is to get it incredibly interactive and engaging entertainment out to as many people as possible. And that's why I'm totally down. Now, you're absolutely right that when you're trying to sell someone the new version, is it 8K? Is it 16K? Is it 32K? Where are we going from here? Right now, I'm happy with the number of Ks, in the fidelity. It's great. Then the value proposition changes, and I understand why traditionalists are looking at that, being like, I don't like change. I want it to only be where I want it to be, and that's the part where my logic gap starts to break, because when Phil and his team are putting amazing content on more platforms, who's the victim? I've been asking a lot of people like, who's the victim? And there aren't any, except for people that just like, well, I want it only where I bought it, and that's what I expect. So I think that's interesting. So I applaud them for being agile enough in a sort of changing and transition market to expand. But I agree with you that like the value proposition of that physical unit, that by the way, they weren't making a lot of money on anyway. No one makes a ton of money on the margin of those hard boxes. They make a lot of margin on selling content. So them leaning on that, I don't think it means it's the end of a physical entertainment unit in anyone's living room, but I do think that it's a sign of that the game sort of landscape's changing.